As the nation gloriously celebrated its fight for freedom 100 years ago, it seemed to have forgotten the aims of those men and women so long ago. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, cherishing all the children of the nation equally. But in no way is the Ireland of 2016 living up to that. Peter McVerry, campaigner for the homeless, reported in 2015.
In the Dublin area, more than 1,000 new people have been accessing emergency services. The official figures are 5 new people becoming homeless every day in the Dublin area alone. In 2012, 7 or 8 families a month were becoming homeless. In 2013, 20 families a month. In 2014, it was 40 families a month. In the first 6 months of this year, it was 60 families a month became homeless.
Since the beginning of 2016, almost 1,000 families and 1,100 children have been made homeless, due to a crisis that the government could and should have addressed in the last 5 years that it had control. Strangely, 100 years ago, one of the men to die for these ideals, James Connolly, had already foreseen the problems. Or more correctly, they were the same problems his generation were dealing with in the Dublin of his time.
The housing accommodation of the Dublin workers is a disgrace to the city, and no one in the corporation seems to possess courage enough to avow the truth, or to face the storm of obloquy which would be directed upon the head of the councillor who would take the opportunity to expose on the floor of the City Hall the manner in which the interests of house landlords are protected, and the spirit of sanitative legislation set at naught. The so-called philanthropic companies who profess to cater to the needs of their workers by providing cottages, etc., in reality charge higher rents than do most individual house owners elsewhere. We all remember how the owners of the Coombe area property attempted to raise the rents on their cottages because they were compelled to undertake the construction of necessary drainage, which they culpably neglected to supply when the property was being built. Now, the Dublin and Suburban Artisans Dwellings Company have in like manner attempted to raise the rents on their Cork Street buildings by another 6 pence a week, in spite of the fact that the property has lately been allowed to get into a most dilapidated condition. Roofs leaking, footpaths all broken up, roadways full of holes and pitfalls, and lamps never lit in the darkest nights of the year. We are glad to record that this attempt at extortion is being met by the tenants in a most spirited fashion, and that it is likely to succeed. Councillor Cox has also stood by the tenants in this matter and has used his influence on the corporation to stop the rebate of taxes which this company usually obtains on the score of its philanthropic character.
Connolly continued with ideas to remedy the lack of property for rent, which was pushing up prices, with a few ideas which Alan Kelly was also considering 100 years later, which shows how long it takes for Irish politicians to actually carry out a good idea.
The taxation of unlet houses would compel the owners of property to accept rents much lower than they now demand, in order to avoid the disagreeable necessity of paying taxes upon unremunerative property. But the erection of houses to be let at the cost of construction and maintenance would place in direct competition with the speculative house landlord dwellings which, not requiring a dividend, could easily beat down his rents to a point more within the compass of the working man's purse.
Let's not leave it another 100 years to actually change the outrageous situation in rental and housing in the state. Let us celebrate something useful and tangible, and in so doing fulfill the sentiments of the men and women of 1916, not with speeches and parades, but real action.
It must be remembered, however, that all these measures are merely tentative. Our cities can never be made truly habitable or worthy of an enlightened people, while the habitations of its citizens remain the property of private individuals. To permanently remedy the evils of city life, the citizens must own their city.